TeenSpeak. Empowering today's youth. The purpose of TeenSpeak is to allow teens a safe space to share stories and strategies around challenges and inspire other teens on how to meet their own challenges or make their mark in our world. Some of our guests may have done some inspiring things that may not resonate with everyone's views, be it personal or political. This is not a political podcast, and though we have our own personal views, our guests do not necessarily reflect our views. They are simply here to share a story and experience in hopes it inspires others to be the best version of themselves and make the impact they desire in the world.
Well, hello everybody. This is Antoine Thompson, or Coach T, here in North Carolina. I want to welcome you to TeenSpeak-Empowering today's youth.
And this is Coach Keith, based in New York, but this week in New Hampshire. I'm actually at Colebrook Academy. It's a school up here in northern New Hampshire, working with an amazing group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on social emotional learning and running my O Shift workshops. So hence a very different background from what you
And that's awesome that you're doing this and you share that, Keith, because actually our guest tonight, or I should say tonight, because we're doing this tonight because she's in California and we're on the East Coast. She is actually a 6th grader, so I think it's perfect timing for her to come on. Her mom and I are actually collaborating on a public speaking course for shy and introverts. And when we're working on one of our working sessions, her daughter Jackie was present, and she kind of overheard what we're talking about, and I just kind of said, hey, she was helping craft. So we actually, Keith, need to be thanking Jackie. She helped us craft the questions that we have in our questionnaire, because she made them sound a little bit more appealing to young people. So I think I'll definitely want to talk about that in the beginning. But before we do that, I want to welcome Jackie Scoby to TeenSpeak, Empowering Today's Youth. How are you, Jackie?
Good. How about you guys?
Great. We're glad you're here. Thank you for choosing to come on and spend some time with us.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, Jackie, I want to kind of keep going on that. I was telling everybody about how we met, and it was when we were really planning this podcast. And your mom and I was asking her about some of the questions that Keith and I come up for a questionnaire, and you happened to be listening, and I asked you what you thought of some of the questions, and you thought some may not necessarily appropriate, but they wouldn't come across as very welcoming for young people. Do you remember that?
I do.
And aren't you going to take some credit for that?
Yeah, I like that I can edit stuff in my head, but I just want to make sure everything sounds welcoming and everybody feels welcomed and everybody feels good. So.
Well, that's what we want. So we appreciate the feedback. Right?
Yeah.
Like Antoine, I'll tell you, this show is not about me and him doing all the talking, right? It's hopefully facilitating or guiding with questions for you guys, right? For teens to talk about what's going on in their lives and how they deal with it. So, so let me ask you a question. So just because we're talking about this. So as I said, I'm working right now with a bunch of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at a school. And, it's really interesting how the 8th graders, right, were great, but much quieter. The 6th and 7th graders were much more vocal, right? And I definitely think there's something between that middle school to high school, right? Like once you get to the end of middle school, I feel like your mindset's in a different place, right? But when you're 5th and 6th and 7th grade, you're still kind of figuring out things, right? So tell us a little bit about just your experience right now with middle school, and what do you find? What are the things that you're most excited about, that you love about it? And what do you find your biggest challenges in middle school? Because I think every middle school teen is going to feel the same way that you do.
Well, I'm excited to start being able to build a schedule for myself, being able to create habits that will benefit me in the future. I am struggling a bit with the social, I will admit. I am not a very social person. I get scared easily when people talk to me. So it's like, whoa, what do I do? People actually come up to me, because I've been told that I come off as scary to other people, because a lot of people, they don't talk to me because it's 6th grade. You don't really go around going, hey, do you want to be my friend? So that causes a lot of people to have to actually go talk to people. And my class, or my school in general, we don't do a lot of that. we talk to each other when we're forced to. So when someone willingly comes up to me, I get scared. It's like, whoa, what do you want from me? So I am struggling both the social, but I like to think that I'm doing pretty good in the mental and in the thing. I am struggling with math a little bit, but
Hey, I struggle with math every year. Middle
Yeah,
school, high school.
adulthood now.
Yeah. Thanks, Antoine.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, because I do too.
So the social side of it, right? Like, so when you said like, I'm curious what you meant when you said like at your school, it's kind of like you're forced to versus like can you elaborate on that a little?
um I go to a type of school. It's a Waldorf charter school. So we do a lot of trying to communicate with based on communication and the arts and stuff like that. So a lot of the time we have partners when we do experiments and stuff like that. And that's pretty much the time when our class actually socializes. Like right now we're doing a play, and in that play we have partners for the ending and the opening scene, and that's when we're actually talking to each other because we need to get stuff done. And that's one of the main times. Otherwise, our class turns to oil and water. Like, you know how we put oil into water and it starts to separate into its own little group?
Yeah.
That's how a lot of my classes are. Like, we'll all be put in the same room and then we'll all spread out. You know, we'll all go to our own different areas, our own different places, our own different people. I Yeah, I actually made my friends because I didn't go up to them. I made my friends because they came up to me to ask something from me, and I was that needy that I kept on coming back to them. So, but
Well,
yeah,
obviously they, what you view as needy, obviously they view it as something, right? That they were that connected with them, right? Because you're friends with
yep.
them now. So a lot of that's
Some
perception too, right?
friendships, some friendships have to go both ways, where they help me, I help them, and everybody gets help.
Oh, that's how they should be, right? That's really true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's how they should be. I was going to say that, Keith. You're absolutely right. But I think to Keith's point too, I think you don't give yourself enough credit to realize that you have more to offer as a friend. And I think the more you do it, I think it's going to become easier for you. Just even based on a little bit of time that I talked with you in the beginning, I would have never known that you had issues socially just because of how quickly you and I interacted. So I think that the older you get and the more mature you get, like I said, you're only in sixth grade, so this social thing is all new to you. And like Keith said, he's working with a group of middle schoolers now. I actually coach middle school kids. I've been coaching middle school kids for 11 years, so I totally understand that dynamic of some kids they're not overly social. But like Keith was saying, in sixth grade, they're really social. In eighth grade, it's almost like they're trying to go, well, I'm like the adult in the school. So, I'm here and you got to kind of come meet me. But you're at a point now where you have an opportunity to kind of shift that mindset too with the group of people that you are friends with now.
I do agree. I do think that experience also comes with a bit of age, and maybe even experiences you've had, because everybody lives a different type of life and everybody learns different kinds of things from different kinds of ways. So I think maybe the older, like you said, I'm 12, so I still have a long way to go. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping to, as I get older, to learn more skills and stuff to keep in mind and stuff like that.
Something interesting. So, like, I'm somewhat familiar with the school. So, it's like a very experiential school, right? Like a lot of experiential learning through projects and like teamwork and communication styles, right? Is
Hmm.
that correct? So, what's interesting is a lot, that also breeds such interesting, unique individuals to those types of schools, right? Because everybody going there is really like, when you go to sometimes public school, right? Just because there has to be rules or there has to be structure, right? You can't always be as expressive as you want with what you want to do, right? Whereas when you go to a school that's based on experiential learning, it allows for a lot more just you being like a little more like your authentic self, right? And being able to share things about you, right? And I think that when you were talking about how some people, when you're in a project, you do your thing, but then some people kind of separate and go their own way. I think I would think that's very common because, you know, it's like everybody knows who they are. They kind of figure out these are my kind of people, right? And then they go back to their kind of people because that's what they see, but they don't really know. So like when you say, the point I was trying to get at, sorry, I do this all the time. I go in these roundabout ways to get to my point. But the point I was trying to make is when you're at a school like that, everybody's very unique and there's certain skill sets that you all possess, right? That normally you might not be able to share in like public school, right? Because just the opportunity is not there. And I think sometimes, that could be a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it can also sometimes, oh, she's more like this, he's more like that, right? And not realizing that there's so much growth by merging many of these different qualities or traits, these experiential, artistic ways that you can be. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So when you say you're scared, like you get scared when people tell me why. What does that feel like when you say I'm scared when people come up to me?
Because I have been into two different types of schools. I've been to the Waldorf, which I have mentioned, and I've also been to, like you said, a public school. And in there, it felt like we were all the same person. We had uniforms, we all did the same thing, the same project, and I'm going to be completely honest, it looked like a black and white TV show. Like, nobody had any color on them, nobody ever drew, and if they drew, then nobody would be allowed to look at it, and there wasn't a lot of room for expression. And I have to admit, that made me kind of down because I'm a very expressive person, if you can't tell. I like to show my emotions. I like to definitely talk a lot. And in this new school, we keep our same teacher until 8th grade. And all these people had known each other. And I'm someone who likes to look at the pack animals, like, because we as humans, we separate to people, like you said, we either see them as closer to ourselves or because it benefits us in some way. So I always found it interesting to stand on the sidelines and watch how different people communicated and how different people, like, they talked or how they act, because the way they're physical is the same way about mental, like closed off and stuff like that. I really like psychology, so I like to look at that during my recess and stuff like that. And during this new school, it was like, wow, people are actually talking to each other. Like, people have color on them. Like, I wasn't used to that because until 3rd grade, I saw nothing, no type of color. Like, I saw only uniforms, only strict work. And when a person came up to me and was like, hey, do you want to come play handball with us? I was like, why are you asking me? I'm not a part of your group. Like, how do I benefit you? Like, what's going to come from me out of this? So it's just something new, and I think it's a very human reaction when something new comes along to be uneasy.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said there. So like to me, and maybe this is just maybe this is actually one of your superpowers. You know what I mean? But to me, what this really shows me is you almost said the opposite, right? Like when people usually when people don't you said what do I bring to you, right? Usually people are looking at it as what am I going to get out of this relationship? So like I just want to point that out because that's a beautiful quality to be able to look at a relationship and be like, how am I going to benefit you? Right? Like, why are you coming up to me? What? So, I mean, part of that I would say, you need to believe in yourself more, that you have this ability to impact people in a positive way. Right. But at the same time, you're already thinking like, how do I help you? Like that's not many 6th graders I know think like that. Right. Not because there's anything wrong with 6th graders, but like they're growing social emotionally, they're not developed yet. And it's usually like, what's in it for me, right? Like, how do I benefit for this? Because they're scared the opposite way, right? How am I going to fit in? Like, is this right for me? Is this good for me? You're looking at it from the complete opposite. It's like, how can I help you? Like, why do you want to talk to me? What do I bring to you? So I find that interesting dynamic. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or Antoine, you have any questions on that?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to kind of just put a pause here for a second. And Jackie, we're trying to blow your head up, but we are trying to blow your head up. So for the longest time, I have a lot of conversations with people, and I hear certain things. There's this one thing that comes up, and I actually wrote an article, and it was published in our local paper not too long ago. And it's all about changing the narrative about the next generation of leaders, the young people that you represent. And one of the first things that I always hear is it's all negative. So it's always negative, negative. And here we are 15 minutes into a conversation with a sixth grader, and I'm scratching my head and going, this is why I stand up and I ask people when they say that, I just go, why don't you tell me, instead of complaining about it, why don't you do something about it? Meaning, why don't you stop, close your eyes, and open your ears and listen to what these kids have to say? Because I'm telling you, I am literally blown away by what you're sharing with us now, because not from the standpoint that they expect it, but this is what more people need to do, is respect that you all have opinions, you have thoughts, you have feelings that need to be heard. And this is why Keith and I have this podcast, to allow you all to come on and share and be who you want to be. And you've shared in this short period of time, and like I say, I'm literally blown away by your responses, your openness, and your authenticity and genuality. And I applaud you for that. And to Keith's point, and I said earlier, and I agree with him, you definitely got to believe in yourself, young lady, because you have like so much to offer. And I think the older you get, the more you're going to start sharing that. You're going to be a game changer in a lot of people's lives.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also think it's like just you like again, right? We never see ourselves as others view us. That's just it's always like that, right? Like listen, I could tell you, I mean, I'll share this. Like I did this workshop today, right? And I like to think it was powerful and impactful, but even I walk out of there sometimes and I'm like, you know what, how many kids did I impact today? I don't think that kid in the back left really got much out of it. Meanwhile, that could have been the kid that got the most out of it, right? So we never view ourselves as what we really offer sometimes. So, I would say you are very mature. Like if anybody is watching this right now, if we didn't say you were in sixth grade, I don't think anybody would know that you're in sixth grade, right? You have
Not a
very good,
chance.
yeah, you have some very good, like you have a high emotional intelligence, the way you carry yourself, right? And again, just I'm so impressed by the fact that you said I get scared when people approach me because I don't understand what they want from me. How can I help them? And I'm like, how can you help them? Just be you. Just be
Yeah.
who you are. Like they should be blessed to know you because there's so much you're gonna inspire out of them, right? But like again, you need to believe that. Like, but I just want you to see like that's the impression or that's the energy that you're putting out to us,
Yeah.
right? But when you can actually believe that inside, oh my God, what you're going to be able to do and the impact you're going to make on others is just, it's like, it's endless.
Yeah. Giving us goosebumps over here, Jackie. I know I got goosebumps. No, we love this. You're the reason we love doing what we do. This is a perfect example of it, because we get to hear the powerful message that you're sharing, the feelings that you're sharing. And this is what we try to get other kids to do. And some are not in a position you're in, but they are in different situations, because everybody has different things going on in their lives. But we want to make sure that everybody understands they're in total control of how much success they're having in their lives, regardless of the influences that are around them, both either at home or at school or wherever else it might be. And we're rambling on about this because as you can tell, and we don't say this to slight you in any way, we're super proud of you, and just truly blessed to have you, and honored to have you on here, because it's like Keith said. Oh, I know you do well, but I didn't know you're like blowing us away, because I can tell you already, and Keith and I are going to have you back on for sure. You're going to be one of our special returning guests on here. So really quick, so we started blowing your head up. Are you feeling good now? Does that make you feel weird to get all those compliments like that?
A little bit, but I'm kind of liking it.
Yeah, well, they're good. But yeah, but it's the way it could be all the time. And you believe in yourself, you'll get a lot more of that, because this is the kind of, if we're two old dudes over here, and if you're making that impact on us, what do you think kind of impact you can make on your peers? Think about that for a second. It's crazy, right?
I don't tell a lot about this to my peers, is the thing. Because there's a difference between people who want to listen and people who want to do their own thing. And I'm willing to share to those who are willing to listen. Those who are open to help and those who are open to hear what others have to say and are willing to improve, those are the ones that usually go farther. But those who are stubborn and closed minded, obviously there's nothing bad with being stubborn, but being stubborn about being closed minded and like staying on your own point, not open to what's going on around you, Those are the people who stay in their own world and don't ever get out of it. I've been told a saying a lot, and it applies to more, but it says, you can't help if you're born poor, but if you die poor, that's your fault. And that has impacted me a lot, and I've kept that in mind as I've been going through the grades. And I think that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, you just brought up something I just want to share, because I think about empathy, right? Around people that struggle, right? That live in poor communities and whatnot. And one of the things I find fascinating, I think, Antoine, you and I spoke about this last week, is this dynamic where when I'm working in like the really, really fancy areas, where there's money and people aren't poor, these kids are so worried about getting into Ivy League schools or going to school, right? And they have to get hundreds and they have to get the best grades, because if they don't get the best grades, they don't get into the best schools. And I always use the analogy for them about, now take your anxiety and stress, think of a poor family, right? That kid has to get those hundreds and those good grades, because that's the only way they're going to college. If they don't get a scholarship, if they don't get the grades so they can get the money to go, they don't have the chance. You're going to college no matter what. Some of these kids may never get that opportunity. So their anxiety and their stress about performing and being at a certain level isn't because they're comparing themselves to others. It's because, like, I want to go to school and I don't want to be poor, and I want to graduate and have a job and do something with my life. And this is the only way I'm going to get to do it. Right. And it's amazing how when I share that, it's like silence. All of a sudden they rethink everything. And it's like, wow, like, yeah. So, like, sorry you didn't get into Cornell. There's 50 other schools you're going to get into, like, but it's true, right? When we start, so like the point I was making is, like, when you start to see how we can share different dynamics, right? And what how different people's opinions and viewpoints around certain things see the world, and we can have empathy and start to understand how we can support one another, it changes the whole dynamic. It actually helps each other feel better about certain things, right?
Yeah, I love that quote. I love that quote, Jackie, and it's great. I have so many quotes, they fuel me, and they always remind me of where I want to be, and I think that's what you do with that one. And I think it's a great motivator, and it's also one of those things. Remember when people used to say, you write your dreams down, you fold it up, you put it away, and you don't keep going checking it, but it's a reminder. It's there, and you ultimately make that progression towards that goal. And that's kind of the seed that you've planted by reciting that. And to Keith's point, that's 100% right. I think there's always two ways to look at things, but it's always a way to bring things home and for a reality check. And that's what he was just describing there. Not to say that you're in that situation. We know you're in that situation. Good. So let's. I did want to ask you. I was going to ask you at the beginning, but we kind of shifted early, and you got on a roll, and we want to keep you on that roll because you're doing a great job. What did you really like about your school? That really, I know you talked about the difference between public schools and about seeing colors and things of that nature. But what are some of the other positives that you like about your school?
I don't know if this counts, but I really love my teacher, because my teacher, every morning, she will ask us, is there anything that happened that will impact your day? Because she wants to make sure we're getting through the school day, that we can do our best. She always cares about our emotional and our mental health, and she makes sure we're doing good, and she always keeps tabs on us. Like, it feels like she actually cares. And I'm not used to that. I've had a lot of bad teachers, I'll admit. Like, I've had a lot of teachers where it's like, wow, how did you get your degree? Why are you here? You don't want to teach. Why are you here? And this teacher was like, wow, is this what a teacher is supposed to feel like? So I think she has made this experience a lot better.
I can relate to that 100%, Jackie, because as a basketball coach, before every practice, when the guys are warming up, there's one thing I always do. I can tell by body language, facial expression. I know if somebody's has something going on with them, and always inquire before we continue. And it makes the biggest difference in the world. So what you just described is the heart of what teachers are supposed to be doing, and that's caring about students and their progress. And what better way to do that than to build a relationship with them that's not directly education related, is from the human side of, hey, I care about you as a person, Jackie. Is there anything, going on in your life that's going to impact your ability to learn today? And you go, I had a bad night at home. So guess what? Now that teacher understands that she's going to be approaching you a little differently because she doesn't want to add any more pressure that's already on you, more than what's already on you. So I absolutely love that. You got a great teacher.
I do. I won the lottery with that teacher, and I'm so grateful for her.
That's empathy right there at its finest. Teacher being
Yeah.
able to do that for our students, his students. I was going to ask you a question. My mind went poof. I forgot what I was going to say.
So this is one of the downsides you have to worry about when you get our age is you forget stuff. So you got to write it down while you're thinking about it, Keith, like I do.
Yeah, I know. But I remember now. So you ever hear people talk about like finding your tribe? You ever hear that term? Right. So like, what does your tribe look like?
I don't know, because I feel like, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I feel like we have different personalities with like different types of people. And I'm gonna admit, I get a little jumbled up with those personalities sometimes. Like sometimes I'll bring my home personality to school, and people are like, why are you acting this way? What is happening? It's like, sorry, wrong mindset. Let me just switch that real quick, and then I'll get right back to you. And I have a lot of classes, and for each one, I have to like remember what act I keep up. It's a tiring show. One woman show, man. I should be on Broadway.
Let me ask you,
nail it.
yeah, let me ask you a question about that. You just, again, I see you're bringing so much to this that you don't even realize. So
I'm telling you.
You just said it's tiring, right? What's tiring?
Just keeping track of all of it, because I'll be talking to a friend and it's like, what happened? Would you want to know my perspective from this personality or this one? Because this one was keeping track. This one did not pay attention. This one was off in a whole world and counting sheep. So it's just that keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
Keeping stuff.
So what if you didn't worry about any of that and you were just who you are? And maybe some of those people that don't like you aren't for you, but the ones that are, because it does take a lot of energy to try to fit in and please different groups of people, right? Versus it takes so much less energy just to be yourself. And, as long as you have enough strength and confidence that when people don't connect with you or they're not right for you because, they don't like your outgoing personality, that's okay. They don't need to be in your tribe, right? But like, what if you could just be yourself and your tribe can just be the people that love you for who you are? Because yeah, it is a lot of work to put all those different masks on and try to be a different person for different people. Because guess what? They're not doing the work. You are.
Yeah.
Yes, but it also gives me that structure, because I'm not only doing this for the people and all around me. Sure, they're a little bit of a part of it, but I like structure. I like order. And giving me those personality, it helps me organize things. Because with those, it helps me keep track of the people around me. Because I don't switch personalities with the same person. Each person has their own one. So that helps me categorize whether they're more sensitive, whether they can handle more, whether they're more physical, whether they're more emotional, whether they can help more with work, whether they can help me personally. And helping those personalities, that helps me adapt and get used to that, because I need to get used to people being around me, because I don't want to be in my own world. I want to be open. I want to have open eyes to what's happening around me, and me being able to see what's happening around me helps me categorize. That helps it easier for me, because if I just had one, then I'd start to collect everything together.
So how can you do that without it being so much work?
Well, sometimes it just takes a little work, and I can down with that.
You're good with you're good with doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes work needs to be done. You want your job done right, you do it yourself.
Well, I think it's one thing that when you were describing that, and when Keith was kind of sharing his thoughts on that, it reminded me of a quote, and this is one that I absolutely love because it kind of ties in what you're talking about. It said everybody is in your life. The question is, they're in your life for a season, or they're in your life for a reason. And the season is the short term, reason is the long term. So I offer that up as, when you're deciphering between, like you said, those personalities, and when you're doing that, the more work you're putting into it, you're actually defining that answer for yourself, season versus reason. Because if you have to put too much work in it, they're seasonal people. Because those reason people are the ones that are easier to have in your life and they take less effort. And I think we're just offering that up because, like you said, you like the work, but at some point it's going to get to a point where you're like, you know what? Holy crap. It's going to maybe start having an effect on you if you try to do balance too much. So I think that's just my little bit of advice. But if you ask yourself that question, if you ever get in that situation where you're trying to decipher that, just ask that question. Is this a seasonal person or is this a person that's in here for a reason?
But there's also the difference between holding on when you have to let go, and there's a difference between putting in work. And I know the difference, and I'd like to think I do, because I am willing to, if those people, if I can't help them and they can't help me, and we are not connecting in any way, and they're just not a person that should belong in my life, and it's affecting me badly, like my mental health, like they're dragging me down, then I know what's better for me, and I know that they should be a seasonal person, like you said.
Yeah.
Well, this is. I love you to keep going with that because that was the whole reason that we both kind of went in this direction with you, right? Is because remember this is about wisdom that you can impart to other teens, right? So what you just talked about is letting go of people that don't serve you, right? And yes, so I'm going to reflect back because I want to make sure that I didn't come across with the wrong intention. Yeah, we come across people in our lives, right? And we give them space and we try to get to know them. We try to get to understand them. But at one point, if somebody doesn't serve us, we have to have enough strength to let them go, right? And sometimes it's hard to let go of certain people for some people because it a lot of their self-esteem or their worth is tied to relationships they're in, right? So a lot of people will hold on to a relationship. So the fact that you like you sharing that you're able to recognize, hey, this person's not serving me anymore, or there's nothing we're not giving to each other. There's no symmetry anymore in this relationship, so I need to let this relationship go. I think it's a very powerful point for other teens to hear because I do think there's a lot of teens that hold on to relationships because they feel the person in the relationship's going to help them get somewhere else that they want to be, even though it's painful to be in that relationship. And being able to recognize that and step away takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to do, which I think is what you possess. And I think that's wonderful. So that's why I'm glad you shared that. Right, Antoine? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes 100%. I think you're 100% right on that, Keith, and I appreciate you, kind of going back and clarifying that. But I think we're both in agreement too, Jackie, that you're years of beyond you're years beyond your age and the way you think, and that's a huge thing. And I think what we're trying to do is just kind of share some insight so that you don't overwhelm yourself to some point, because I can kind of see, and I think that's what Keith was sharing. We can see kind of how you think now, and even in this short conversation. You're a natural born leader is what I see. There's no question about it. And I think you're going to be leading more people than not. But it made me think about another quote that I love to share with you. And I love quotes, and it sound like you like them too. There's one that I always refer to. I did this a few years ago, and it's one that I always use when I'm trying to decipher sometimes, okay, what purpose is a person serving in my life? And the quote goes, "You must have the courage to leave the table when respect is no longer being served." And kind of how you can tie that into kind of what we're talking about. It's not necessarily being blatantly disrespectful to somebody, but it's just a different approach to how they're affecting you, your mindset, your mental health, and your state of mind. And sometimes that's where less energy and effort is needed to kind of foster that relationship. And it's not necessarily you have to do it for good, but it's like right now that's not good for me. And it'll serve you good in the long run. Maybe not now, because we want you to be who you are. Like I said, we're just trying to drop words of wisdom for you to, and you can use some of the stuff against your mom later too. Yeah, well, I'm telling you, man, Keith, and I know you'll test me. I'm blown away by this young lady. Jackie is your superstar, girl. Seriously.
You get great social emotional intelligence. You really do. For somebody your age,
Yeah.
it's quite amazing what you just the way you're speaking, the things you're saying, and the actual understanding of like other people's impact, right, on the word and the impact that you're making on like just being able to be cognizant of that at your age is really remarkable. I think that's great. I love that about you. That's your
Yeah.
superpower.
That is your
Which we'll
superpower.
get to. I want to give away any hints, but yeah, like, so I guess if there's like, being in sixth grade, right? But being a really mature sixth grader, if there's one piece of advice you could give all your middle school, friends and colleagues, right, about their tribe, right, finding the right people for them, right, what would that be?
I think that what I said about you have to know the difference between putting in the work and just knowing when to let go. I think that would help a lot. And if you don't mind, there is another issue that I've had a lot of people, they don't know their place. And I'm not trying to sound rude, like, you should know your place. No, I'm saying they physically do not know. They don't know if they need to be a leader or if they need to be led. And I was also told this, if you couldn't tell, I really like quotes and I like to hold on to them. I was told, you either walk like a king or you walk like you don't care who the king is. And that definitely helped me throughout school because that helped me ground myself. That helped me be like, okay, I have confidence. I can do this. I can be a leader today. I can show that I shouldn't be left in the dust. And that definitely got me through the public school. And the walk like the person who doesn't care who the king is, that has gotten me through this charter school. Because just because it's all bright and colorful does not mean they are not just normal teenagers and normal sixth graders. It does not mean that they don't have. It's like putting snakes. You can't expect them to not have poisonous fangs. Like, you have to be aware. You have to watch your back sometimes. So yeah, I think those two of walk like the king or walk like you don't care who the king is, and knowing the difference between knowing when to let go and knowing when to put in the work.
Yeah, when you say put in the work, like with a relationship, like, is this relationship worth putting the work in?
So I have a question for you, Jackie. This is what I'd like to I should say. There's a saying that says, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." So if you were to show me your friends, what would your future look like?
Well, I'm hoping that I have someone who has my back because I've gotten used to watching my back and being cautious. I'm hoping that at some point I can find someone who lets me feel like I don't have to watch my back. Like, I don't have to worry about what I say will be used against me and other such. So,
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Keith, for these next guests that come on after this girl, they better bring it, man. 'Cause she's ready. She's ready for anything. You hear me?
Yeah, you just really described, like, I think what a lot of kids in middle school feel, right? Like, they're still figuring out relationships, they're still trying to navigate and understand, like you said, what is this a worthwhile relationship versus is this a superficial relationship, right? And at the same time, you know, recognizing the very person who might be my really good friend might not have the confidence I have. So a situation comes up where, you know, they get to feel good about themselves and inadvertently, you know, it can hurt you, right? Because they make a choice to feel better about them and they don't realize how that choice impacts the other people in their lives. That happens all the time in middle school. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of middle school and getting used to everybody is just being able to navigate those relationships and understanding why people act the way they act, right? Because usually there's a reason for it. But unlike you, who's, like I said, has such a high social emotional intelligence, most kids don't, right? So when something happens to them, they're upset about it, and they don't understand why. And it's like, it's black or white. Okay, you were mean to me. You're a jerk. You're the worst. I'm never talking to you again. You're a horrible person, right? But meanwhile, that horrible person could have had the worst day possible and they were just acting out, right? But it's not something that everybody in sixth, seventh, eighth grade are really attuned to, right? So the fact that you are is wonderful, and that's why it's great that you're sharing that. Because if anybody else is listening to us, especially kids that are middle school, to be able to understand like the power in what you just said, being able to recognize that and having the ability to navigate it, but also know, hey, I can watch my back, but I don't have to be paranoid. I just need to be smart about the choices I make and who I let, what boundaries I put up, right? Who I'm going to let in and who I'm going to keep at a safe distance, right?
Yeah. Jackie, what Keith just described, that's the relationship I have with him. I just keep him at a distance because I don't know. I just never know what he's going to do, right? Is when we get on camera, he's like my best buddy. But when we're off camera, he's even my better friend. I'm kidding. Hey, listen, but
He's also
to
in North
Keith's
Carolina,
point,
so we are.
yeah. We're hours and hours and hundreds of miles away from each other. But I think the thing that what he's sharing, I think is really important is, sometimes, especially young people, they're emotional led and driven, and when something bad happens, they overthink it and they react based on their emotions. And you can't make life determining decisions based on somebody's emotional outburst and at a certain time. But listen, we're preaching to the choir with you, but we're just trying to kill time, because you basically should be running the show. You should be interviewing us. I think is probably what we should do. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a chance to ask us a question. You're the host of this show, TeenSpeak, Empowering Today's Youth, and you have one question to ask me and one question to ask Keith.
Okay.
Now you got to start off by welcome to TeenSpeak. I'm Jackie,
okay.
and
Okay.
you're the host. You're the host. Go ahead, go for it.
Okay. Welcome to TeenSpeak. I will be interviewing these two. I don't know.
Yo, we're not very exciting and interesting people, as you can
No
tell.
intro first.
No intro. Start the music, please.
I guess it's too old, guys. You got to ask some questions.
You gotta listen. Let me help you out there, Jackie. And what do you two old farts do? That's your question. Go ahead and ask us that question.
Okay. I'm gonna try and put it in better words because I'm gonna try.
Oh, you can use that word. We know we are. No, we know we are. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you don't need to rub it in your face. I've learned that from my mom.
Okay.
I try to use good manners. I try. Okay. What is a piece of wisdom you wish you would have learned when you were younger?
Ooh.
For both.
I know my answer.
Go ahead. Think about mine.
So
yeah.
Are we is this show are we allowed to say bad words?
No, you can't say the bad words.
We're not allowed to use any explicit language at all. So literally, I think the one piece of advice that I lived with this day, but I wish I had when I was younger, is truly understanding that the most freedom and the most liberating day of my life was the day I finally learned not to give a crap what anybody thought about me. And if I was taught that when I was young, like drilled into me, like it wasn't drilled into me, you know what I mean? My kids, like they know that. I drilled it into them from the day they were talking. Like, it is not important what other people think. If somebody, I spent many years, I struggled in high school. I got bullied. I had a lot of struggles until I got to college. And it was because I was always worried about what other people think. Now, I just don't care, because I know in here where I'm coming from, and I know where my heart lies and what my intentions are. And I wish every teen could take that, learn that, and be like, just be who you are. Don't worry about what people think. Just be who you are. Be a good person, and life will treat you well.
Yeah. No, that's good. Mine's similar to that. Mine was to have more confidence in myself sooner rather than later, when realizing that, what I thought I had. I just didn't believe in myself enough to do that. And ironically, here's the irony to that. I was actually voted most outgoing in my senior class. So you think I'd never have that issue, right? But internally, I battled with that. Externally, I didn't, because kind of what you were talking about earlier, Jackie. I kind of put on this facade of this is who I am. But in reality, I was always second guessing myself, and it's always because of my surroundings. But that would be the one thing I would have told myself years ago, is don't second guess yourself. Just go with what you feel and let the chips fall where they may, similar to what Keith is saying. Don't worry about what other people think. Great question, Jackie. You're a great host.
Excellent. Well, now Antoine's going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, now it's my turn. Yeah. So there's no right or wrong answers to these questions. It's like quick fire. Just say the first thing that's on your mind, and just go for it. All right. You ready?
Right. Yep.
All right. So first question: who is your biggest influence and why?
Okay. I didn't do a lot of influence. I had a lot of people who I didn't want to become like. I went the opposite route because I could never just choose one person because everybody has a flaw. I just focused on the person who had the most. That sounds really mean, but I, saying my truth. I focused on the person around me that had the most flaws, and I was like, I don't want to do that. What's the opposite of what this person would do? I'm gonna do that. So that's what I had. So
Okay. Wow. See, first time, different answer. I love that. I love you are a unique young lady in a great way. All right. Second question. What is your biggest strength and how would you utilize it as a superpower?
my biggest strength.
Yes.
Okay. Um, I like to think that I'm emotionally smart. Like I can read emotions well, like tell emotions. Um, I think that would be a cool superpower because I I don't read a lot of superhero and stuff, but I have friends who do. And I heard one, I don't remember its name, but it's like it can make your biggest fears or like the thing that like you're conscious. Like I'm thinking more of villain, but like it can bring that closest to your mind, like where you can feel like your biggest self consciousness. And I just thought that was really cool. Like it can use your emotions against you. I thought that was really cool. I don't know about superpower. I know about villain power. Like
The
that's what I
scarecrow.
was thinking more about.
Yeah. Scarecrow. Exactly. All right. Number three. What do you find the biggest challenge for preteens and teens today, and how do you manage yourself around it?
Confidence. And I think how I manage it well is I I was told a lot growing up that it doesn't matter what the sous chef thinks, it's what the head chef thinks. And that always applied to me being the head chef and the people around me being the sous chefs. And I kept that in mind. It's like, what do I think about this? That's what I'm going to go with. So I've been using that a lot. And I've had problems with my ego before. And I'll fully admit to it. I have ego problems sometimes. So I've just learned to use those and like tone it down in a way that's usable for me and does not make other people think I'm a jerk, for the sake of a better word.
Yeah. You said say that again about the sous chef and the chef. I want to hear that one more time.
It doesn't matter what the sous chef thinks, it's what the head chef thinks.
Uh-huh. Well, Rena, I asked you to repeat that. I used to be a sous chef and I used to be a chef. I'm not sure which one of those I believe.
About you.
What's that?
I did not notice about you.
Yeah, I should be a chef and a sous chef. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna leave that one alone, because that's an internal battle going on right now because those both. But anyway, what is your biggest failure, and what is the lesson that you learned from it?
Okay. Um, I let my guard down with the wrong people, and I learned to be smart with my decisions.
That's
Poetry,
great.
man.
Great one.
That's a great one. Oh my gosh, you're gonna be our third. You're gonna be. Will you be our co-host for the show moving forward? Because you're killing it. You're killing it,
Oh,
Keith.
I want to talk to her like when you're in high school. Like you,
Yeah.
oh my God! Like if you're giving this golden nuggets out now, I can't even imagine what you're gonna have to share in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's why I said we got to have her back on when she gets in high school. We get you in eighth grade, and then we'll get you in 10th grade, and we'll get you a senior
Yeah.
every 2 years. You're coming back on. That's a given. We'll get a contract written out with your mom. You're not getting paid, but you'll be back. So the last question: what kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
A good one. That's a very vague a very vague answer. Um, I don't know how to say this the right way, but I don't want people who be like the ones who go down in history. I want to be the people who people remember, not who like just in the books. I want the people who I know, who I care about, who care about me, so they remember something good, so they can go on better. So that way, when I do something for them, they don't keep on making that mistake. So that way, I can help the people around me while helping myself. Kill two birds with one stone.
That's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, another gem, man. I'm telling you, man. Beautiful stuff, Jackie. This has been beyond exceptional interview with you, and we are beyond overjoyed. I know I am. I'll let Keith use his own words, but I am. And I know we had to reschedule because you were under the weather, but we're super excited that we're able to reschedule this. And you have been like phenomenal guests, and you've dropped so many great nuggets. And I think for me, the thing that you really have shared is that this next generation of young people have a voice that needs to be heard. And this is why we have this podcast. And I know a lot of people are going to hear this. And so when are you on social media?
Yeah.
Okay. It's about to blow up. Okay. Just to make sure you remember who helped you, who put you on the stage first. Okay. TeenSpeak, Coach Keith and Coach T, right?
When you're an
Okay.
influencer.
Yeah, when you're an influencer, you make sure you don't forget. I'm one of those people always remember where you came from. That's what my parents always taught us. So,
All right.
but really, Jack, it's been phenomenal, and I personally can't thank you enough for your time, knowledge, and your experiences that you shared with us today.
Yeah, and I would say, like, all kidding aside about influences, like, just speaking to you today definitely influenced me and gave me just some great, like when I do the work I do, I share stories, and you just gave me so much material to share about this amazing young lady that I had on my podcast. So when I'm talking to other teens that are in 6th and 7th grade, to be able to share what you just shared, I think is only going to help them. So like you already are influencing people. You definitely influence me. Like I'm very, very impressed, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do with the world. So, I'm sure you're going to leave your mark for sure. So thank you for being on. As always, like they always say, right? The only limitations that we have are the limitations we put on ourselves.
And just be you, because everybody else is already taken.
I like
next
that. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Are you looking for an experienced youth empowerment and leadership coach to help your teenager find their true north? Look no further. Let Coach Keith and Coach T show you how, through education, support, and inspiration. Visit their websites, shiftyourpower.com and coachtscorner.com, respectively, to learn more about the services they offer and to book a session today.